The New England Patriots are sitting on a season that looks like a dream from the outside, but inside the 20 there is a quiet problem that will decide how this story ends. On paper, you see a team with 11 wins and 2 losses right now, and a number 2 seed in the AFC, with a chance to grab the AFC East at home against the Buffalo Bills and a primetime showdown coming against the Baltimore Ravens. That sounds like a contender. But when this offense crosses the 20-yard line, everything feels tighter. Drives that look smooth between the 20s start to stall, and fans feel that little knot in their stomach every time the red zone graphic pops up on the screen. Something does not match between the record and what happens in the most important 20 yards on the field. This is what makes the Patriots so fascinating right now. Drake May is playing at a level where people are talking about MVP-type football without laughing it off. The defense gets stops on third down, the coaching staff has steadied the offensive line, and national shows are suddenly treating New England like a real factor again instead of a rebuild project. At the same time, other fan bases keep pointing at one thing: the red zone numbers. They look at the field goals, the stalled series, the near misses, and say the success will not last when January hits. They are not seeing a broken team. They are seeing a team that wins big moments between the 20s and then becomes almost 50-50 once the space disappears. That gap between dominance and doubt is where the real story of this season lives. Even inside the building, the tone has changed in a way that raises the pressure on this one weakness. Earlier in the year, Mike Vrabel talked about how far the team still had to go, keeping everything week to week and trying to cool off the hype. Now he is using phrases like, "We are playing for a championship this week before the Bills game," and you can feel the standard shift from just making progress to actually chasing titles. If the head coach is going to say champions are never satisfied, then the red zone cannot stay like this. To understand why that pressure feels so real, you have to go back to the start of the season and remember where expectations were before the wins started stacking up and the word championship even entered the conversation. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Patriots and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 350 likes on this video. The New England Patriots were not supposed to be sitting in this kind of spotlight right now. And that is where the tension really starts. All summer, people talked about modest goals. Most predictions sat around 9 wins if things break right, with a maybe upside of 11 wins if Drake May takes a big jump and the roster stays healthy. Even Mike Vrabel kept pushing the message that this team still had a long way to go, telling reporters that the level of play in August was nowhere close to the standard he wanted. Fans were curious, but nobody was planning parades. The tone was cautious, almost protective, like everyone was trying to avoid getting fooled by hope again. Then the season actually started, and the math changed faster than anyone expected. Wins piled up against teams that matter in this conference, beating the Buffalo Bills, handling tough games against physical fronts, controlling long stretches against playoff-level opponents, and suddenly that quiet 9-win talk felt ancient. National shows began sliding Drake May into the top quarterback conversation. The league flexed Patriots versus Baltimore Ravens into prime time, and people started asking a question that would have sounded crazy in the spring. Could this team actually chase the top seed in the AFC if the Denver Broncos slip, and New England keeps handling business? What started as just have a solid year turned into real stakes that you can feel in every snap. Inside the locker room, the language shifted too, and that is where the pressure on the offense really spikes. When your head coach starts calling this week a chance to play for a kind of championship inside your own stadium against Josh Allen and the Bills, you understand that the bar has moved. You are no longer just trying to look competitive. You are trying to finish drives like a team that expects to be playing deep into January. And that is where the problem inside the 20 becomes dangerous. Once you pull back from the story and look at the actual red zone numbers, you see exactly why so many people still feel nervous every time this offense crosses that line and the field shrinks. The New England Patriots look like a powerhouse until you stare at one ugly line on the stat sheet. When this offense crosses the 20, they finish drives with a touchdown only, about 51% of the time, which puts them all the way down around 24th in the league. That means every red zone trip feels like a coin flip between 6 points and a field goal, with a few painful turnovers in the mix. For a team chasing the top of the conference, that is not a small detail. That is the difference between putting games away early and leaving the door cracked open for teams that should already be buried. What makes this even more interesting is what happens when you compare them to other contenders. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers sit in a similar red zone range, around 50%, but they have dealt with constant injuries on offense and a first-time play caller at this level. The Baltimore Ravens have sat near the bottom of the red zone list, with Lamar Jackson missing time and Derrick Henry disappearing for stretches. The Houston Texans have struggled inside the 20 with C.J. Stroud out for games, and a young coordinator still learning how to call tight field plays. Those teams have clear built-in excuses. The Patriots do not. Their quarterback Drake May is on the field, their top weapons are available most weeks, and their offensive leader Josh McDaniels is one of the most experienced play callers in the sport. That is why these numbers feel so heavy on this specific roster. This is not a case where the talent is missing or the system is brand new. This is a case where everything looks sharp from the middle of the field, then the efficiency drops off once the space shrinks and bodies crowd the box. When you see a unit with this much experience and this much production get stuck that often in the same area of the field, you have to start looking at how the group is built. The next piece of the puzzle sits up front, with the blocking, the size of the line, and the way this staff is trying to run the ball near the goal line. The New England Patriots talk like a power offense near the goal line, but the bodies on the field tell a different story once you slow the tape down. Inside the 20, you often see tight formations, heavy looks, and runs, called straight into crowded fronts, as if this group is built to blow people off the ball every time. Then you look at who is actually doing the blocking. Michael Onwenu has cleaned up his game over the past month, but early in the season he had key blocks slip in short yardage, and those mistakes show up in this tight area much more than they do on 1st and 10 near midfield. Next to him, interior players like Garrett Bradbury and Jared Wilson do a solid job in space, yet they are not the biggest anchors in the league when defenses load the line of scrimmage and dare them to hold ground right on the goal stripe. It goes deeper than size. Roles are stretched in ways that make life harder when every inch matters. Jack Westover is a natural tight end who has been asked to function like a fullback, leading through traffic for Raymondre Stevenson and Tre'Veon Henderson on downhill calls. That is a tough transition, and you can see moments where the timing or angles are off just enough to let a linebacker slip free and blow up the play. On the edge, the team has already had to adjust to life without Will Campbell after his knee injury, and turn to depth like Vidarian Lowe and Ben Brown in different spots. Those players have stepped in and battled, but every change along the offensive line adds to the challenge of finishing drives with clean, physical snaps in the tightest part of the field. The result is an identity that does not fully line up with the personnel. The Patriots look like a group that should lean on Drake May, technicians like Stephon Diggs, and smart route concepts to stress defenses, yet in the red zone they often try to win like an old-school short yardage team that lives between the tackles. When your interior is undersized for constant goal line collisions and your lead blocker is still learning a new job, you place a lot of pressure on perfect timing and perfect execution to make those designs work, and as soon as one block is even slightly off, the whole play breaks down. That is where the spotlight shifts away from the line and onto the skill players themselves, because some of the most painful red zone failures have come from missed assignments, loose ball security, and small mistakes by the very weapons this offense relies on to finish drives. Inside the 20, the New England Patriots are not just losing battles in the trenches, they are also suffering from small mistakes by the very playmakers who are supposed to finish drives. There are snaps where the design is there, the defense is stressed, and one assignment breaks everything. A clear example came from Kayshon Boutte on a motion block across the formation. His job was simple on paper: cut off the defender and create a lane. Instead, he hesitated, never truly engaged anyone, and a defender shot through untouched. The play had no chance. It is not about talent. It is about knowing the responsibility and carrying it out with full commitment when the field is crowded and every missed detail shows up. The same pattern shows up with the backs and receivers when the goal line is close. Tre'Veon Henderson leaked into the flat against the New York Giants on a call that was drawn up perfectly for a quick throw and a race to the pylon. Drake May put the ball low and behind him, which we will talk about later, but Henderson also had a chance to turn that catch into more if everything was clean. Instead, he had to slow down, adjust, and got wrapped up short of the line. On other drives, the issues were even more costly. Raymondre Stevenson and Tre'Veon Henderson both put the ball on the ground inside the 5, turning sure points into sudden changes. Mac Hollins drew an offensive pass interference flag in the end zone on a route that should have produced a clean score. None of these plays come from a lack of effort. They come from how punishing the red zone is when timing, discipline, and focus are even a little off. When you line up all of these moments, you see a picture that is bigger than any single player. The Patriots have more than enough weapons to be dangerous near the goal line. Stephon Diggs as a trusted route runner, Hollins as a physical target, Hunter Henry as a safety blanket, and young speed from Tre'Veon Henderson and Kyle Williams all give Drake May answers that many quarterbacks would love to have. The problem is that the margin for error in this part of the field is tiny. One false step by a receiver on a pick route, one loose carry at the end of a run, or one mistimed release can flip a touchdown into a field goal, or worse. That is why the focus now turns to the one person who touches the ball on every snap. Because if this team wants to match its record with true red zone confidence, the next leap has to come from the way Drake May reads, trusts, and attacks when the space disappears. The strange thing about this whole story is that Drake May might be playing the best football of any quarterback in the conference once you ignore the scoreboard graphic that says red zone. On the open field, he is ripping throws to every level, keeping the offense on schedule, and pushing the ball in ways that separate him from a lot of starters. You see charts with him sitting in that top right corner for efficiency, while names like Bo Nix, Bryce Young, Justin Fields, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Dylan Gabriel, Tua, Justin Herbert live in a much busier middle. The ball jumps out of his hand, he moves in the pocket, and he clearly understands how to control a game between the 20s. That is why every stalled trip inside the 20 feels twice as frustrating. It is not a talent issue. It is that his comfort zone has not fully expanded into that final stretch of grass. When the field gets short, the tape shows a quarterback who is still learning to trust what he sees at full speed. Against the Cincinnati Bengals, Drake May rolled out on a boot concept with Hunter Henry breaking free in the back of the end zone, not once but twice. The window was there, the leverage was right, and all he needed was a quick, committed throw. Instead, he waited just long enough for the linebacker to recover and swipe the pass away. The kind of design that is meant to steal an easy score before the defense can react. The ball never came. Add in the fact that his legs have not been used as a real red zone weapon very often, even though everyone knows he can run, and you get a picture of a young star who is still passing up chances to put real stress on defenses when the space tightens. The good news is that this is exactly where many top quarterbacks hit their last wall before they fully break through. The red zone is where timing, courage, and trust in the play caller all meet, and Drake May is standing right in the middle of that challenge. He has already proved he can carry a team from drive to drive. Now he needs a plan that helps him play just as free when the safeties are on the goal line and the windows look scary small. That brings the focus straight to the people building the script each week. If this team wants its quarterback to play like an MVP in every part of the field, the next step has to come from how Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel design and call this offense when the Patriots are close enough for the fans at home to hold their breath. When you look at the New England Patriots near the goal line, it is impossible to ignore the fingerprints of Josh McDaniels on every snap. Between the 20s, his script flows, motions create answers for Drake May, and matchups open up for Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, Tre'Veyon Henderson, and Kyle Williams. Once the ball crosses the 20, the mindset often shifts into something much more conservative. You see bunch sets, heavy bodies, and straight inside calls that ask a smaller interior to win ugly over and over, instead of leaning into the quick passing game that has carried this team. On top of that, designed runs for Drake May are used with real caution, as if the staff is saving that part of the playbook for a later stage of the season. The result is a plan that sometimes keeps the most dangerous part of the offense on a leash right when defenses are most stressed. Around Josh McDaniels, the rest of the offensive staff has helped drag this unit from chaos to control, which is why the remaining flaw stands out even more. Thomas Brown has brought in motion and timing ideas that echo the best modern passing systems. Todd Downing has cleaned up spacing for the receivers so you no longer see two players crashing into the same area. Ashton Grant has poured time into Drake May so he can run protections, checks, and progressions like a veteran. In the trenches, teachers like Doug Marrone and Jason Hodling have rebuilt technique and unity for Michael Onwenu, Garrett Bradbury, Jared Wilson, Will Campbell, Vidarian Lowe, and Ben Brown. This is a room full of experienced voices and fresh ideas, which makes it even more striking that the red zone plan still looks more like survival than attack when the field shrinks. Over all of that stands Mike Vrabel, and his words have quietly raised the bar on what this offense has to be. When he tells the locker room that every week is a chance to play for a form of championship, he is not just pumping up the room, he is declaring the standard. That standard does not leave room for timid calls on the 5-yard line or for saving the best concepts for some later day. If the head coach is going to talk openly about titles, then the staff has to call the red zone like it trusts Drake May and this group to win games against the very best in the conference right now. Which is where the bigger picture comes in, because once you zoom out to the full AFC race and look at teams like the Buffalo Bills, Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs, and Jacksonville Jaguars, you start to see exactly how much this one weakness can tilt the path to the top seed and a deep run in January. The New England Patriots are stepping into a stretch of games where every red zone snap can change the shape of the entire conference. Buffalo comes to Foxborough with the AFC East on the line. Then Drake May has to go into prime time against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, travel to face the New York Jets, and finish at home against the Miami Dolphins with Will Campbell getting closer to full strength. If New England goes something like 3-1 in that run, they keep pressure on the Denver Broncos for the #1 seed. If they stumble in the same tight area that has haunted them all year, they slide from controlling their path to hoping other teams break for them in the bracket. That is the real cost of leaving points on the board inside the 20. It is not just about one drive. It is about home fields, matchups, and whether you are hosting playoff games or packing bags. Across the rest of the AFC, the door is wide open, which makes this weakness both dangerous and fixable at the same time. The Broncos have stacked wins behind a great defense and up-and-down work from Bo Nix, but many of those victories have come by a field goal or less. The Houston Texans look scary with CJ Stroud playing confident ball and a defense that squeezes teams after halftime. The Kansas City Chiefs are not the unstoppable group everyone expected, even with Patrick Mahomes. The Jacksonville Jaguars are winning, yet still searching for steady play from Trevor Lawrence. Teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, Indianapolis Colts, Los Angeles Chargers, Buffalo Bills, and Miami Dolphins all carry their own question marks. In a year where so many rivals feel beatable, a team with an MVP-level quarterback and a strong defense has a real chance to grab control of the conference, as long as it stops settling for 3 when it should be walking away with 7. That is why the fix list for New England has to move from theory to action right now. Get Jared Wilson back in rhythm next to Garrett Bradbury and Michael Onwenu, keep Ben Brown ready, and be honest about how much work Will Campbell should handle before the playoffs. Shift the mindset and scoring range from safe calls into designs that trust Drake May, Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, Tre'Veon Henderson, and Kyle Williams to win quickly, with more misdirection, more movement, and clear, simple reads that let the ball come out fast or let the quarterback run when the lane appears. Tighten every assignment for players like Kayshon Boutte, Ramondre Stevenson, and Mac Hollins, so one mistake does not wipe out an entire series. If the Patriots can turn those coin flip drives into confident finishes over this next month, they are not just fighting noise about being frauds. They are walking into January as a complete team that nobody in the AFC really wants to see across the field.